strategies, theories of international relations, gun control and disarmament, strategic analysis of the advanced conflict, and technology and warfare. Dr. Cheema has written extensively on a wide range of issues related to Pakistan security and has participated in many important international conferences. The speakers in this session are Mr. Mark Fitzpatrick, Mr. Sayyid Muhammad Ali, Dr. Matthew Harris, and Rear Admiral Mukhtar Khan. Dr. Cheema, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I am profoundly thankful to Dr. for asking me to chair this session. We had a great meeting, very comprehensive, very enlightening session in the U.S. Parliament. Today's session says the security in the Indian and Pacific region, challenges and opportunities. It's a little confusion saying that security in the Indian and Pacific region. Does it mean Indian Ocean region? It is also connecting Ocean. Indian Ocean. Because I thought there is no such thing as an Indian region. India is a country in South Asia, and there is a South Asian region. If we closely monitor the narrative in the last 7 years, we have seen a policy attempt, I don't know, successful by India, to call it, rather than calling it Asia Pacific region, which has been a name used historically for 4 and 5 decades. India is trying to call it Indo-Pacific region rather than Asia Pacific region. Similarly, there are attempts to put their stamp on various regions as Indian regions rather than the traditional names which have been followed in the last not only many decades but many centuries ago. So it's a part of the objective to Indianize the region as maybe their ambition to be a great power at the global level. Which is not disputed, but the thing is how it is done and what ways are adopted. I will not stand between you and the honorable speakers on this very subject, but I will make my observation on the time to come. So we are very lucky that we have a very distinguished panel on this session. As the Secretary has explained it, our first speaker is Mark Fitzpatrick. I hardly think that he needs an introduction in the Pakistani academic and policy sector. He is so well known, and he has very distinct views on the subject. Dr. Fitzpatrick is Director of the ISS America, responsible for representing the Institute in the Western Hemisphere. He also has the ISS Non-Proliferation and Nuclear Policy Program, which focuses on nuclear and missile challenges posed by Iran, North Korea, and North Korea, and on nuclear security and nuclear disarmament. His Delphi book, Overcoming Cycle, Pakistan Nuclear Proliferators, was published in March 2014. He joined ISS in October 2005 after 26 years careers in the US Department of State, including as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Non-Proliferation. So I request Dr. Mark Fitzpatrick to kindly make a presentation. Well, I have one journal request to all the distinguished speakers. We already, I think, running late in our discussions, and not only this session is important, the following section after this is also very highly important. So we don't want really people getting over the delays and delays and delays. So I request the honorable speakers if they can confine to the time which has been given. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm told that as the first speaker after a delicious lunch, my job is to keep you all awake and not take a nap after lunch. I'm going to talk about North Korea, the nuclear problem of North Korea. And I'm going to try to do so by relating it once in a while to Pakistan. but not by referring to the sordid nuclear history between the two states. North Korea is relevant to Pakistan as it's relevant to every country because there's a real danger that the crisis could erupt into war. I give it a 50-50 chance of war over the next 12 months, and it could well become a nuclear war. Now, in South Asia, you could take some comfort in that because no longer can South Asia be given the label of the world's nuclear tinderbox. North Korea has claimed that label for now. But obviously, don't take too much comfort because a nuclear war anywhere is going to be detrimental to everyone in the planet. It's becoming close to a war because of North Korea's growing capabilities, which now can threaten anywhere in the continental United States. The latest launch, the Hwasong 15 at the end of November, was very capable indeed. The re-entry vehicle may have broken up upon re-entry, but that shouldn't give anyone too much reason to be optimistic that North Korea does not have a system that could threaten U.S. cities. Why is North Korea so determined to have a nuclear-armed intercontinental ballistic missile? Well, it says it's for deterrence, and I believe them. They always say, if you talk to any North Korean, that they're not going to make the same mistake that Saddam made in Iraq or that Gaddafi made in Libya. They gave up their nuclear weapons programs or had their nuclear weapons programs taken away from them, and they were dragged through the mud and killed as a result, and they don't want the same to happen to them. This morning we heard from General Kidwai that North Korea, for North Korea, it's nuclear deterrence at work. And I think he's right about that, although I wouldn't have said it with the same degree of praise. I don't think he meant praise, but it kind of came across that way. But look, North Korea doesn't need nuclear weapons to deter the United States. They've been deterring the United States for 60 years with conventional weapons because North Korean artillery is just across the border from Seoul. Seoul is within artillery range of North Korea, and so the United States and South Korea have been deterred for decades. North Korea didn't need nuclear weapons. And in fact, nuclear weapons are why North Korea now may be attacked. It's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's because North Korea has developed nuclear weapons that it has a big target painted on Pyongyang. Also, nuclear weapons aren't going to protect the regime from the gravest threat to the regime, that threat being an internal threat. Just as almost every other communist country has fallen to internal threats, I believe the same will happen to North Korea as the people become more and more aware that their nation is not the paradise that its leaders have claimed, that they are so far behind their neighbors in China and South Korea. And in addition, nuclear weapons are impoverishing North Korea by both capturing so much of the resources of the country and also denying the country the resources from trade that they otherwise would have, except that their nuclear program has triggered sanctions that have isolated North Korea more and more. North Korea's other reason for seeking nuclear weapons is to aim to decouple the United States from its Northeast Asian allies. By threatening the United States, North Korea hopes that the United States would not go to the aid of South Korea in the event of a crisis of a war in the Korean Peninsula. There's a debate in the United States about whether North Korea has an intention to launch a unification by military means, again, as they did in 1950. My view is that North Korea knows that they would lose any such intent because they're so far behind South Korean forces in terms of technology and economy, and that they don't intend to try to unify through military means. And I think that one could look at a South Asian example, as some academics do, and ask, have nuclear weapons in Pakistan's hands made Pakistan more inclined to seek a military solution to the Kashmir issue? And in my view, the answer is no. Pakistan has not become more aggressive, more militarily inclined to use the nuclear weapons as a protection against an attack on India to seek to unify with Kashmir. The U.S. response to this problem is one of maximum pressure, and there's no limit to what maximum can mean. It means sanctions of every type. It means secondary sanctions on Chinese firms, although that's tricky because China's economy is so intertwined with that of the United States. It means pressure on every country that has military ties with North Korea. Egypt lost a portion of its military aid from the United States because Egypt was engaging in military sales with North Korea. And the United States is going around putting the same kind of pressure on all African countries that engage in military ties with North Korea. I tried to see if there's any military ties remaining between Pakistan and North Korea. I didn't finish my research on this. I welcome any advice from anyone. I think the answer is there's not too much, but there is trade between Pakistan and North Korea that the United States is seeking to have cut off. Again, to try to make my remarks relevant to Pakistan, I checked the reports of the UN panel of experts on North Korea sanctions. And those reports show that Pakistan is one of the 18 countries involved in imports of sanctioned goods and minerals from North Korea. You're one of 18 countries that's violating the UN sanctions in dealing with trade with North Korea. But let's look at some of the other 18 countries. Oh, here's India, France, Germany. There's some other friends of the United States there, so I'm not going to single out anybody for criticism. I just noted. The United States is going to put on maximum pressure by other means, all forms of economic sanctions, probably some maritime interdictions. There's even talk of an embargo on North Korea. But there's a growing mood in the United States that if this pressure doesn't work, that an airstrike, military strikes, will be necessary. And some in Washington, and some of them even work at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, some of them think that North Korea won't respond to a limited airstrike, just as Syria did respond to a limited airstrike by Israel. My understanding of North Korean military policy is to respond very forcefully, and a North Korean defector whom I know very well, who I knew in London, has been saying the same. But it may be that the United States tries a limited strike because nothing else is working, and that could be a spark to war. Or it may be that, more likely, North Korea hears the tweets reads the tweets from Donald Trump or his statements about fire and fury and devastation like the war has never known, and thinks the United States is about to try to annihilate them, and then North Korea strikes first. There's a debate in the United States about whether North Korea can be deterred. The White House says, no, North Korea can't be deterred. I don't get it. Mao was deterred, and I'm sure he was more bloodthirsty and sort of crazy than Kim Jong-un. Stalin was deterred, and he is worse, at least as bad as Kim Jong-un. But one reason the United States doesn't want to go down the deterrence route is because it implies you have to accept North Korea as nuclear armed, and they just don't want to do that. In addition to the other reasons, it would be an incentive for South Korea and Japan to seek their own nuclear weapons if North Korea was accepted as nuclear armed and they had this threat and they saw the United States as failing to stop it. I don't think Japan is going to go nuclear, but there's a very strong mood in South Korea to do so. Over 60% of the population, if you ask them, do you like nuclear weapons, they say yes. The government doesn't, but that popular mood could could make South Korea go nuclear. U.S. policy is no, don't do that. We don't like states going nuclear. And here's the other way that this relates to Pakistan. The United States has never liked Pakistan's nuclear weapons, has a non-proliferation policy that has resulted in sanctions on Pakistan, which were lifted a long time ago. But you will feel in good company, at least, when the United States puts great pressure on South Korea, as it did in the past, not to go nuclear. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for saving your 5 minutes. I hope it will lead to a good discussion after that. So that was Mark Fitzpatrick, who in his own ways made an implied comparison between Pakistan and North Korea. He did not want to make it explicit because of the sensitivity of Pakistan and India. Our next honorable speaker is Sayyid Mohammed Ali, a senior research fellow at the Center for International Strategic Studies. He's widely published, interviewed, and quoted on geopolitical strategy, both nationally and internationally. He's a frequent participant in various international platform engagements and regular commentator for policy forum, think tanks and universities on strategic and operations. Earlier, he has taught at the National Defense University. He is also teacher at the Service Academy of Pakistan and has rich and diverse international exposure to both government and international organizations. He earlier served as a correspondent of the Voice of America at its Washington, D.C. headquarters and correspondent at the International Platform. I request Sayyid Mohammed Ali and take just 15 minutes to make up that.
Thank you so much, Professor Chima. I think the task of picking up the audience after a really sumptuous lunch has been fulfilled by Mr. Mark's provocative but somewhat pessimistic perspective which he has presented regarding this very interesting region. My perspective would be guided by the overarching geopolitical and geostrategic assessment that I modestly make. And in that context, I restrict my views and analysis to the nuclear and strategic domain as the larger maritime and other naval developments of conventional and other nature will, I'm sure, be amicably dealt by Admiral Barr subsequently. So basically, when you look at these two regions, which the American academics and policy pundits prefer to link together as Asia Pacific, I think it would be appropriate to perhaps offer a fresh perspective. If you look at 19th, 20th, and 21st century politics, it will not be inappropriate to describe the late 19th century as having a British-led world order, which after the interwar period yielded towards an American-led world order. And now we are entering a phase in which we are perhaps also witnessing the signs of multipolarity. In that context, this region of both Pacific and Indian Oceans, I think played a very important role. British decline did not translate into a great power rivalry between London and Washington. And I think it was the British wisdom of statecraft which allowed America to rise. And perhaps I think there are useful lessons for America to learn from their British friends that how should they deal and manage the rise of China. So in that context, I think what happened after the Second World War was the evolution of a global world order which was essentially anchored into three alliance systems, one in Atlantic, one in Middle East and South Asia as well, Baghdad Pact and Ciclo, and in the East Asian side they had some allies as well, like Japan and South Korea. So if I can briefly look at that. And what the US did was to gradually evolve complex interdependent systems of economic, political, strategic nature with these allies to ensure that these alliances are not only affordable but also feasible for both allies and the US. So what is happening now, fast forward to 2017, is essentially the same structure is now being consolidated, reinforced, and postured against rising China. That's my basic overarching take. Now coming specifically to the issue of rise and fall, my bold take on that is that I do not see the rise of China as translating into an imminent or predestined decline of the US, because if you, from the most latest 2017 military balance figures were to guide us, I think what the US was spending on defense at the height of Cold War during Abelard crisis in 1983-84 is now almost dwarfed by what it is now spending. So the level of spending is almost the same. So where is arms control and where is disarmament? I don't think that after the arrival of the new president in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, arms controllers will have very lucrative professions in the foreseeable future. But what is happening in the strategic domain is not arms control or disarmament, but repositioning of the US capabilities, which were largely poised in and designed to take care of an transatlantic conflict or a European conflict towards Asia Pacific. And in that context, it's not disarmament or arms control, but repositioning and of these capabilities which are advancing. And so this is leading to a greater concentration of conventional and strategic capabilities and advancing arsenal in this region. So perhaps just as an example, of the 14 Ohio-class ballistic missile nuclear submarines, 8 are deployed in this region. So if you look at the latest Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, it assesses that approximately 100 nuclear warheads are deployed at one Ohio. So 800 of them are deployed only on these 8 ports in this region. And if you were to add the bombers and other weapon systems like air-launched cruise missiles and the B-2s, which are now deployed at the British territory of Diego Garcia, after repositioning it from Guam, I think it will be safe to say that this region has the greatest concentration of nuclear weapons than perhaps any other region right now. And this trend is unlikely to change, I think, in the foreseeable future. But in the Cold War as well, what many scholars and observers have neglected is the strategic advantage that Indian Ocean region offered the US vis-a-vis Soviet Union as well. Because unlike Atlantic and Pacific, due to restriction of bases and greater ASW capabilities, the Americans had much greater advantage and freedom of operation in this region. Because if they were to target the heartland of Russia from the Indian Ocean, the flight time would